There's no one around that I can see, just you and me. And it's so nice to be in good company.
Hey, my name's Scott Bowling. I'm here with Kurt Thomas. Kurt Thomas is an award-winning singer-songwriter. He won CMT's Music City Madness and Kenny Chesney's Next Big Star. He's opened up for several people, including Zac Brown Band, Darius Rucker, Leonard Skinner, and a ton of other people. He also wrote with Dennis Morgan in Nashville, who's wrote over 20 #1 hits. So, what was it like meeting Dennis Morgan, man?
Oh man, Dennis was so cool. I mean, anytime you write with some of these big writers, it's they can be a little bit strange. All creatives, God knows I can get my weird on at times, but but Dennis was so cool, and I wrote a lot of the songs off my Give It Hell Trying.
Did you?
Album with Dennis.
What songs you write with Dennis?
I wrote Give It Hell Trying, the title track. I wrote Give You My Coat.
Nice.
And wrote Lord of Mercy, Love and Elvis, which
Okay.
is one of my favorite songs because I'm a huge Elvis freak.
So you would travel to Nashville and stay, where would you stay at in Nashville?
A lot of times I stay in hotels. I got several buddies up there, live up there, and but that's the thing, man. Whenever you travel to Nashville, it's whenever you live in Georgia, you're like, you make that 4-hour drive up there, and whenever you do it, you're like, man, I hope I get me a good song today, because you don't want to travel 4 hours and come home with nothing good. So you're like, you really put your thinking cap on the way up there, and like, man, I gotta write a good song today. And Dennis was always so cool about, hey man, what you got in mind? I'll tell him. He's like, well, what about this? And then he'd start doing some really cool stuff. And he's an amazing guitar player. And just keeping him focused is kind of a trick in its own, because like you'll be in the middle of writing a song, and he'll be like, let me tell you about the time I the time I met Bob Dylan, and then you'll be on a story for like an hour, and you're like, okay, come back to me, Dennis, because but he's so cool, such a good guy.
That's
very,
awesome,
very
man.
good friend.
So how did you learn? When did you realize you could write and record? Write a song.
Writing, honestly, for me, it's one of those things where the more you do it, you get better at it, and
right on.
The key is just you got to stink for a while. And like the first song I ever wrote was called "Come Back to Me," is off Kurt Thompson's Small Town Band album, and it was just, I go back and listen to some of those songs now, and I cringe. I'm like, oh God, that was so bad, so bad. But I think every writer needs to go through those years of trying to create their craft, and just trying to become a better writer. And whenever I was recording that Small Town Band album, I met Lee Davis, my producer at the time, and he was kind of the one that helped shape me into
next level.
Yes, I wanted to impress him all the time. I was like, I'd go home, write a song, a couple songs a week, bring them back to him. Most of the time he'd be like, no, go back.
And this is while you were in the Small Town Band?
Yes. And,
who was in the Small Town Band?
Oh man, it was me, Dwayne Pinion, my brother, Kevin Thomas.
Cool. That's cool.
Louis David. The members were constantly changing over. Ryan Simmons, Jamie Moss. We all had such a good time, and like every picture, if you go back and look at all the newspaper articles, the band was different every time. But I had my core guys that were just, they always stood by me, and I'll still pull them up on stage with me
cool.
if they come out to a show.
How long does it take you to write that many songs? You have 10, 12 songs each.
Oh, the best songs are the ones that come fast.
Okay.
But I wish they come more often like that. They come faster now than what they did then, but like back in Georgia, that was kind of people's favorite off that one. It was the one that stunk the least.
Right.
But
that's a good song, man.
Thank you.
It's the only one I know, brother. Off that album.
I appreciate that. But anyway, it was like, a lot of the best songs, they'll come in like 10, 15 minutes. You gotta love those. But
when did you decide to drop the Small Town Band? Was it because of Lee Davis when he told you to go on?
Yeah, I wanted to record that first album with the Small Town Band. We played all the bars together and stuff like that, and but Lee, he approached me about doing a solo record, and he was just like, let me bring in some
of his own guys?
Yeah, some studio musicians like Mike Hines, Mike Steele, and all these guys who play for like Corey Smith now,
that's cool.
And stuff like that. And he brought them in, and man, it was just a whirlwind. It was just like, wow.
Was that a big transition when you told your guys from Small Town Band, you're like, look?
It was a little tough, at first, but all in all, they supported me. They were like, Kurt's the one out writing the songs, you know, and stuff like that. So let him do it. And they were so cool and supportive. They always have been supportive.
So you wrote that song, "Love Might Be Blind, but It Sure Found Me." That's an awesome song, man.
Thank you.
I love it. I love the catchiness of the song phrases of that.
Oh yeah, I was listening to a lot of Tim McGraw.
Oh, were you?
At the time that I wrote that song.
Nice.
And that song came out. What was it called? Had a barbecue state of what?
T-shirt.
Something like that. That
Yes.
was it. Something like that. And I was like, I want to write a real upbeat, catchy song like that. And I went home and I was like, I want to write about that first date experience, you know, because I could never grow facial hair very well and stuff like that. You know, that awkwardness of going out on that first date.
When's the last time you played that song?
Oh, it has been at least a good 5-6 years.
Well, brother, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's play it.
Let's do it.
Must have combed my hair about 1,000 times. The words that I'm gonna say keep running through my mind. Shave both the whiskers off my chin. I got the old man's keys and I comb my hair again. Well, I walked up on the front steps to meet her. The sweet 16 has never looked any sweeter. My heart was pounding and my body began to shake. Well, I never knew anything and ever feel this way. But in one moment, I was swept right on my feet. Yeah, well, love might be blind, but it sure found me. Well, now, love might be blind, but it sure found me. Well, I said, love might be blind, but it sure found me.
So after Enjoy the Ride, you did your second album, Turn Up the Radio. How long did it take between albums?
Oh man, we had kind of already started going into Turn Up the Radio.
Oh, really?
As soon as, before even Enjoy the Ride even got produced and we could, you know, put it out there to sell. Because Lee enjoyed making that record so much and he was just like, I can do better. And he'd heard that song I wrote, The Effect Is Love. And that was the first song I wrote off Turn Up the Radio. And he loved it. It was really cute. You know, it was about a boy being in, you know, science class in 8th grade and sees that girl walk into the room. A lot of my stuff at that age, you know, or at that time period, a lot of young people's songs, is because I was young at the time. You know, it was.
So when you write that song now, do you think back when you were young, or did you write that song a long time ago?
Oh, I wrote it a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was just, you know, it was a neat little song. Then I wrote Happily Ever After, then Daddy's Girl, and those were the songs off the record that people loved, you know, and it was really cool. Yeah.
What was it like writing Daddy's Girl? Because obviously at the time you didn't have any kids or anything.
No. I wrote it for a friend of mine. I worked at a place called Trenton Technology, and it was a computer company, and my buddy Chuck Henson was back there telling me about his this guy that would come and pick his daughter up for dates and how he'd be cleaning the shotgun and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm gonna write this song to make him laugh and feel better. And I wrote the song and I took him out there and a couple other guys from Trenton and I let them listen to it. And man, they were just like, man, that's a great song. I was like, thank you guys. And still to this day, you know, whenever I do it live, it sells at least, you know, a few copies of that record for me.
Absolutely. Do
know?
people still request that song
Oh
to
yeah,
this day?
absolutely.
That's
Especially
awesome.
like, and people will get me to record it for them, like they want to play it for their daughter or their son-in-law or somebody like that, you know.
When you wrote Happily Ever After, what's that song about? Did you just write it one day, or
I
did it
just
take you a
wrote
while?
it was one of those that just came out of nowhere. It was, you know, there was no. It's a cool story.
It is.
But it never actually really happened to me. But I thought it would be cool if it had. You know, it was just. It's about that boy who the girl dumps him, and then he shows back up at a party with this hotter girl, and he's like, ha ha ha, in your
She's
face.
the one you're looking at. Yeah.
Exactly, that kind of thing. Yeah, a lot of my songs, though, if you go back and listen to the old records, and a lot of them sound very like for younger people, and that's because I was young at the time.
Right.
You know, like if you listen to Give It Hell Try, and then you go back and listen to like Enjoy the Ride, you're like, man, he's not a kid anymore. You know, he still might act like a kid sometimes, but he's not a kid anymore. And it's just, you know, life throws you. Like as soon as I finished Turn Up the Radio, and then I did 6 Strings and a Prayer, and I was like, all right, that's it. I'm probably out. I mean, as a songwriter, I shouldn't say that because the songs they do keep coming, but you know, I always doubt myself. I'm like, all right, that's it. I probably ain't gonna have no more great songs. But then I ended up having children, and then it's like material presents itself, and you're like, I'm gonna start writing about them. I'm gonna write about my wife and all this stuff.
So when you went to your third album now, how long of a gap was that between Turn Up the Radio and Six Strings and a Prayer? Was that a long?
That was a long gap. Yeah, that was.
And you had kids between.
Well, I had gotten married, and we moved to Greensboro, North Carolina, for a little while, and we did a little tour out in Texas whenever we put out Turn Up the Radio, and you know, we got done with the tour, and I was living the family life for a while, enjoying being married, and then went back to Lee one day, and he's like, you got any songs? I was like, yeah, I got like 20 of them. And so we sat down, picked out our favorites, and did that record. And then then there was an even bigger gap, you know, like a 10-year gap between that and Give It Hell Try. Right. Which I finally got to do. It was always my dream to do a record in Nashville. Mm-hmm. And I got to do Give It Hell Try in Nashville.
I kind of want to go all the way back to your very first Kurt Thomas and the Small Town Band, and back in Georgia. I remember you actually gave my father a copy of this, and he gave it to me and goes, man, this guy reminds me of you. He's silly, you know, he's funny, and I thought that was really cool. But back in Georgia, man, that sounds like a classic. Let me ask you a question first. Would you ever consider re-recording that song? Like you did Kickback, back in Georgia. That would be awesome.
I would love to, just for the sentimental value of it. That was the first. Right. I'd written about 6 or 7 songs before I wrote Back in Georgia, but that was the first one that people actually paid attention to. You know, whenever you're playing those first songs, you know, you're out there playing in the coffee houses, and like Coffee House in Dahlonega, Penny University in Gainesville, and stuff like that. And you play like some of those first ones you wrote, and you can see people just over there. They start talking to each other, but back in Georgia, they would actually pay attention. I was like, okay, I might have something.
When you played back in those small places in Dahlonega, did you take your whole band? Was it like your brother, your drummer?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And playing with your brother must have been awesome, man.
Oh, it was great, and he's always been so supportive of me. And like, man, we have like a 10-piece band on a stage the size of this bar. I mean, because they'd be like, I want to play with you. I mean, I'm sure, come on, let's go play. You know, we had a great time though, man. Some of my favorite memories are definitely with the
Well, do you want to play Back in Georgia?
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
The city life, guess it finally got the best of me, 'cause I can't take it anymore. I wanna go back where the sky's clear and the grass is green, and there are no locks on any doors. Whoa, I was born where amazing grace fills the air, and the hearts of every man around. I wanna go back to a place where I can lay my head, and I can finally unwound. Back in Georgia, in that small town, in that small town.
So when you did Give It Hell Trying, that's when you first did your started doing your music videos. What was it like doing your, you did Kickback, right? That was your first one, right?
Yes. I did that with Dustin Blake at Root Down Studios. And man, he did such a cool job, and he made it real easy for me, you know, because honestly, whenever you do videos, I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but you lip sync to your record. And right man, that was so nerve-wracking for me, because we had a big crowd of people that I didn't even know. They were all from Adairsville. The girl who works with us, Hannah Gordon, all of her friends, she called them over there, and they all showed up and jumped out of the trucks, and they're all dancing in the
Whose concept was that? Was that yours?
That was Dustin's.
Okay, Dustin. So he got the storyline.
Yeah, he had all the ideas and told me about it, and I was excited to do it, you know. But it was so nerve-wracking, and like in the video, you see me drinking that Jack. It started off.
Is that real Jack? Or what?
It started off as sweet tea, but it ended up being Jack, because I was just so nervous. I was like, I don't like. I can sit there and sing in front of people, 20,000 people. It don't even bother me. But you asked me to lip sync. I'm not a lip syncer. It's not my thing, and I'm over there like having to lip sync to these songs, and I'm like, oh, I feel like an idiot.
Was it a long day?
But the more Jack, it was like, oh, let's have some fun. Let's do this.
Nice. When you on the album, I noticed you have a song called about Elvis. You wrote a whole song about Elvis. What is your love with Elvis?
Oh man, I love Elvis. Love Elvis.
You're like, I got to write a song about Elvis.
Oh man, well, usually if you're into music, somebody will ask you eventually, are you a Beatles man or are you an Elvis man?
Yes.
And all my life I've been an Elvis man. I love the Beatles, don't get me wrong, love them. I think they're...
What about Rolling Stones? Because I've always heard
love
that
the
in
Stones.
the
I've
mix
seen them twice. They're
Okay.
incredible. But as far as like the Beatles and Elvis, man, it was like Elvis was so cool. I mean, like, yeah, his styles and stuff of clothes he wore, like they're not in style today. But as far as just a cool guy who could hold an audience in the palm of his hand, nobody could
And
do that.
I like how
Elvis.
you write the song, because you write it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you write it almost like you were there, and you're like, you know,
Well,
you were there in the like you're almost writing about someone else.
Oh
like,
yeah, and
that
I
was
wrote
there
it.
and got to witness it.
Oh yeah, well I wrote it with Dennis Morgan.
Dennis Morgan, who wrote all the hits.
And he actually, you know, he was at Elvis's funeral.
Wow.
And stuff like that.
God,
And
he
you know,
must have picked
he
his
was
brain
around
off that.
Nashville whenever Elvis was still alive, you know, and
jeez.
playing shows, and he got to see Elvis and stuff like that. So it was good having Dennis with me
Wow.
while that was happening. But I'll always be an Elvis fanatic, man. I love Elvis. I just think he's cool.
My last question off Give It Hell Trying would be Fishing. Man, that song is
yeah.
amazing. And God rest, you know, Tommy, your father. But that song is amazing.
Oh,
you know,
thank you.
and
Thank you.
truly gives me chill bumps just listening to it, and just seeing how you've grown from being Kurt Thomas in the Small Town Band, and each album he gets better, and you write better, and you
thank
write better,
you.
and you leave Give It Hell Trying with Fishing, and it's like, man, dude.
Well,
I mean, how can you top that? Like writing wise,
know.
you know?
Well, I dedicated that song to my dad and my brother because, I mean, I went with them several times. Every opening day of trout season, we'd go to Dockery Lake. And, you know, I quit going after a while, but my dad and my brother, they always did that up until the day that Dad died. And, you know, that was something special they always had. And, you know, me, I was kind of a dreamy, creative kid. You know, I'd be writing stories or making up movies with my little toys and stuff like that. That was my thing. And, you know, I was born kind of creative. But, you know, I wanted to give them something that they, you know, a tribute to them too, you know, and, you know, I still listen to it and I still, you know, start crying every time I listen to it, you know.
What was that like, sending that to your brother and your mom and your
man.
family? Be like, that's like your gift to them. You're like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
Dad did so much for us. Here you go, man.
Well, I think that's one of the greatest gifts you can give anybody is a song, because it's your heart poured into that, you know, just like, you know, even you've had a couple of children, Knox and Savannah, and I wrote them both songs whenever they were born, because you mean so much to me, and I'm like, that's giving the gift of a song is something that's, you know, truly special.
Amen.
So
it's amazing. So now what you're doing now is you got, I guess you still have Give It Hell Trying. You also have your own moonshine, which is awesome.
Oh yes. It's a pecan pie, made by Local Choice out of Charleston, South Carolina.
How'd you pick the flavor, man?
They sent me, that was the best part. They sent me tons and tons of flavors of moonshine.
You were laughing the whole way through.
I'd invite buddies over and like, all right guys, come over here, and we'd all sit there and sample the moonshines. And like, and at the beginning you're like, oh, this one's good, and this one, it's okay. This one's great, and by the end you're like, they're all good, man. They're wonderful. Let's just blend them all together, you know. But we had a great time doing that.
That's awesome, man. Kind of going back, and I don't know where this lands, but you've wrote some songs with Barry Waldrop, and I love that guy because I've seen him before with Zach Brown Band.
Amazing picker, amazing.
Long hair. What band was he in, by the way? He was in Alabama.
Rolling in the Hay.
Rolling in the Hay.
Oh yeah, man. But they played all over Alabama a lot. They played everywhere. But a huge college cult following. And he's out there still playing today. Playing with a girl named Jennifer, and they are just tearing it up right now.
Awesome.
And
you guys wrote a song called "The Toast," right?
The Toast, yeah, that actually happened.
Awesome song, man.
He came to me, and it was whenever it was another one of those things. We were playing a bar that night, and he came to me, and he was just like, "Man, I was reading the paper today, and I saw where my ex is getting married."
Right.
I was like, huh. So I went home and I was like, do you mind if I take your story and go home and write a song about it? He's like, go ahead. And went home and took that story and wrote.
Would you ever put that on an album in the future?
Oh, I'd love to. Absolutely, because I love the story of it, man. It's a great song.
So Give It Hell Trying. You wrote a song called "Sweet," and the video to "Sweet" is awesome, man. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, it was really, you know, whenever Dustin came to me and was like, I want to. He saw us performing at Drew Tutton's farm, and it was, you know, one of those 4th of July outdoor parties, and he saw it, and he heard me play Sweet, and it was written by my friend Jay Drummonds, who's one of my all-time heroes. And it was, whenever he mentioned the video, he talked about just making it like a tribute to my life with music and with my family. All 4 of my kids and my beautiful wife, and just turning it and filming them and all this stuff. And I was like, oh man, I got to do that. So, and it turned out to probably be my favorite video of all. And it did the best as far as like on Facebook, YouTube, and all that stuff.
Yes.
It got tons of hits, and everybody.
And who did that video again?
Dustin Blake.
Okay, so
Studios.
he did your other videos.
Yes,
Nice.
yes, he did. I mean, and it was just an incredible video.
Oh, I love it,
I
man.
loved it. One of my favorite songs.
My baby girl sings sweet songs to me. And my youngest boy throws the ball, says, Daddy, go deep. And my oldest 2 sons, they're so cool. But when I tell them, they just roll their eyes at me. Now mama, she still looks good in a pair of jeans. Even after 4 kids, she still gets to me. And I come from a little bitty town with a big old dream, and it makes all this pretty sweet. My life is sweet. Yeah, my life is sweet. Well, sugar ain't got a thing on me, and my life is sweet. Well now, even on a bad day, when everything goes wrong, I can take comfort in the fact that before long I'll be driving myself to the place that I call home, sweet home, where my life is sweet. I wake up most days saying pinch me. I don't know why the Lord has chose to bless me. All I can do is just say thank you for a life that's sweet. Sweet, yeah, my life is sweet. Well, sugar ain't got a thing on me. Yeah, won't you go ahead and pour a little more honey on my biscuit, please? Yeah, put a little bit of sugar in my tea. Yeah, the Lord's been good, sure been good to me. And my life is, sweet, yeah. My life is sweet. Make it sweet.
Okay, I kind of want to ask you a couple more questions on Giving Out Trying, because like I said, you've had so many great songs off this album. So glad I did this. Can you talk about that just briefly?
So glad I did this. It was really neat because I'm a stay-at-home father by day, and all my kids are begging me to take them to Stevie B's, which is kind of like Chuck E. Cheese, and they were begging me to take them over there. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be rough. But I've always been a softie, and I threw all 4 of them in the car, and we drive over to Stevie B's, and everything went great. They didn't ask us to leave like they normally do, and it was just. I got back in the car, I was like, man, I'm so glad I did this. And it got me thinking, like, most of the things that we dread in life, we're like just dreading. We end up being glad we did them after it was over, so it was just, that's kind of, and I called up Jay, I was like, come help me write this song. It's going to be great. He was like, I'll be down tomorrow. And I called him back in 10 minutes. I was like, sorry, brother, I wrote the whole thing, man. He was like, no, that's great.
What's funny about this album is that, and your last album too, is that your songs genuinely talk about like love a lot. And this album is, and this and your last album is a lot about kids. And I love that. Like that song you did, That's My Boy. That's a great song, man. Talk about that one.
Well, you're right, what you know. Well, as I said before, I'm a stay-at-home dad. And Van, my little boy Van, he has a hint of autism. And I mean, he was really tough. As a little child, and honestly, he's grown up and he's doing so good. He goes to public school now, and he's doing so great. His grades are great. And, he's a wonderful, wonderful child, and he kind of grew out of it. And, and it's just, but at that time, that was a rough period, man. It was just, you're so ready to pull your hair out all the time. It's like anywhere you go, he throws a fit. You do this, he throws a fit, or he's running around doing stuff he's not supposed to, and which is your typical child. But if you have a child with a hint of autism, it tends to be magnified times 10.
Right.
I love the song "That's My Boy," and I try to play it at every show I do, just because, it's that part of my life. I love looking back on it. And I'm so glad I had to go through it, because it's the reward's always better in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. The last question I ask about this, back in the day. Let me ask you this question. Back in the day is at the end of the album. It's like almost the closure. It's like the second to last song. I'm like, man, you saved like the gold to the very, very end, man. Usually like people like the best kind of, but back in the day is a great song, man.
Well, I love
talk about that.
Well, I wrote that with Jay, and he was coming down to Atlanta, and he was coming from Cashers, North Carolina, and he come down and he wrote back in the day, and Jay, like I said, he was one of my heroes. Me and Zach Brown, we used to open up for Jay at the Holly way back in the day.
Really?
Back in the day. And
was this back in the Small Town Band?
Yeah, well, it was before Small Town.
Oh, wow.
And me and Zach, we used to open up for him, and whenever I met up with Jay again, I was opening up for Sean Mullins at the Crimson Moon. And Jay showed up, and Jay wasn't really writing much anymore. He never played out anymore, and I kind of helped get him back into the music again, and I helped him start writing again and playing out shows, and now he's playing all the time. And I'm kind of proud of myself for getting him back in, because he's such a wonderful talent. And we sat down and wrote that song, and it was like that was kind of his comeback into writing again, because he was just so proud of that song, and so was I.
Yeah.
I was like, and he ended up recording it on
and you guessed on it, and we did record it too.
Yes, I love singing on his record with him.
Well, Kurt, I appreciate you being here, man.
No,
thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
It's
I
been
wouldn't have
awesome.
missed it for the world.
Awesome, brother.
Thank you, my brother.
I'm gonna kick back with a bottle of Jack and watch the world go by. Just a full swing and a 6-string and a Tennessee whiskey high. I'm gonna save my worries for another day. Today I'm satisfied. Just a kick back with a bottle of Jack and watch the world go by. I got supper cooking up in the kitchen, country music on the radio. Not a cloud in the sky, oh my, feel a good buzz coming on. I've been working all week in the city, and I think I deserve a break. Gonna kick off the working shoes I'm wearing and have a little fun today. I'm gonna kick back with a bottle of Jack and watch the world go by. Just a full swing, a 6-string, and a Tennessee whiskey high. I'm gonna save my worries for another day. Today I'm satisfied. Just a kick back with a bottle of Jack and watch the world go by. Yes, I'm gonna kick back with a bottle of Jack and watch the world go by.